so here we are with the final scores, and you can see the iPhone comes out a little bit ahead there. Well, not a little bit, quite a bit actually, 1320 on the single, but look how close they are in the multi-core performance. These benchmarks typically always go to the iPhone, but you've seen in this video that the OnePlus is right there with this iPhone. So you have an incredible value option here on the left, and you have, of course, an incredible phone here on the right in 11. These are both great devices, but I do have to state, when it comes to benchmarks, the iPhone seems to always win. This phone is still rock solid fast, and it has a very light Oxygen OS software, pretty close to stock, so it just flies through everything. And so in conclusion of this speed test, what I gotta say is that the OnePlus 8 Pro feels faster to use. It just kind of, the animations, the quick 120 hertz display, super smooth now. It just feels like a faster phone when you're using it. The iPhone feels really polished when you're using it. So, what I mean is you get to enjoy your animations a bit. Of course, if you lower the animation speed, you can enjoy the animations on the OnePlus as well. It has some of the best animations on Android. So in benchmarks, the iPhone won, but in daily speed, I think you're going to feel like the OnePlus 8 Pro is a faster phone. Anyway, if you guys found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, do me a favor, click the like button for me, and let us know down below which one you would pick in this premium segment. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here helping you to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.
Hey, what's up guys? Soldier Knows Best here. So the OnePlus 8 Pro has just been announced, and look at this beauty. Very nice color on it, but I wanted to do a camera comparison between this phone and the iPhone 11 Pro. So the OnePlus 8 Pro has a starting price point of $899, and the iPhone 11 Pro starts at $999. So with OnePlus creeping up in the price point, I just wanted to test out the cameras, front and back, video capabilities, photos, all of that good stuff in this video. So let's jump into it.
Okay, so first let me hit you with some specs. So on the back of the iPhone 11 Pro is pretty easy because all three cameras come in at 12 megapixels. And on the OnePlus 8 Pro, the wide and the ultra wide cameras come in at 48 megapixels, and the telephoto camera comes in at 8 megapixels. And the OnePlus 8 Pro does have an extra camera on the back, and this is called their color filter camera. And this adds filters to your photos, and I did find that they were a little bit more refined than your traditional filters that you find built into software. So, I don't know how much I'm going to use it, but it has it. But now let's get to what you want to see. So this first set of photos include photos that were taken with the main wide angle camera. And on the right hand side with the iPhone 11 Pro, this is exactly how it looked when I was taking the photos, because I was underneath that tree and it was pretty dark. It was shady underneath, and the iPhone represented exactly what I was looking at. But on the OnePlus 8 Pro, I like how it lifted those shadows up and really allowed my subject, which was the flowers, to be more noticeable, to really stand out more. And then also something I noticed with all of the photos taken with the wide angle cameras is that on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it really has a nice depth of field to the photos just naturally without using something like portrait mode. And with the iPhone 11 Pro, you really don't see that. It really kind of saves the blurry background for portrait mode. So for this situation, I like what the OnePlus did here. All right, and so now moving over to the ultra wide camera. So on the OnePlus 8 Pro, something to note is that even though both the wide and the ultra wide cameras are 48 megapixels, they default to 12 megapixels. So they still are using all of that goodness, but by default, you will get a 12 megapixel photo unless you select 48 megapixels in the software. But now looking at these two 12 megapixel photos, I want you to pay attention to the color temperature difference. So on the iPhone 11 Pro, you see that the color temperature is a little cooler in this particular situation. So it's kind of trending towards the blue side of things, where on the OnePlus 8 Pro, the color temperature is warmer. So it's trending towards the orange side of things. But when I switch over to the 48 megapixel mode for the ultra wide camera on the OnePlus 8 Pro, you see now that color temperature has changed from warm to cool. So it closely kind of matches with the iPhone in this particular situation. And as I zoom in here, you can actually see that it's a little bit cooler than what the iPhone is putting out right now. And with my naked eye, I don't see a big jump in difference between the 48 megapixels versus the 12 megapixels here, like I did see when I did look at photos comparing the iPhone and the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, because that Samsung has a 108 megapixel camera, so you really did see a difference when you punched in. But in this situation, it's not really as relevant. All right, so we have another set of photos taken with the ultra wide cameras, and first let me say whoever drew this did a great job. But besides the color temperature difference, and you can just pay attention to that yourself, The one thing I want you to see is that on the right side of the building where the sun is kind of creeping behind the building a little bit, you see the iPhone 11 Pro just handled that glare a lot better than what the OnePlus 8 Pro did. Now, before I left this location, I thought it would be a good time to test out the telephoto cameras. And quality-wise, I like both of them, but the main difference that I was looking at here is just that difference in zoom, because on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it is zooming in 3 times versus the 2 times on the iPhone 11 Pro. And so honestly, neither company is wrong with the zoom level that they chose here, because depending on your situation, you may like having 3 times zoom, and like for this one, I like having 2 times zoom so I can have the entire face of that animal in the shot, but that's going to vary depending on the shot that you're trying to take. Okay, so this next camera feature isn't on every smartphone because it's not even on the iPhone 11 Pro, but this is a macro mode. And so this is it running on the OnePlus 8 Pro. And macro mode isn't just used for trying to take pictures of small things like ants and things like that, but it works well for trying to get this sticker in focus. And it was really windy this day, but it did a pretty good job. But you can see when I'm trying to do the same thing with the iPhone 11 Pro, it just doesn't allow me to get as close and keep an image that's going to be really in focus and actually usable. So it's going to be really blurry compared to the one coming from the OnePlus 8 Pro. And it's a feature that most people don't use all the time, but just having a macro mode available when you need it, it's just one other tool that you can have at your disposal. And next up is going to be portrait mode. But before I show you those pictures, I just wanted to take another look at how the wide angle cameras, or just the main cameras from these phones, handle that background blur. And you can see on the OnePlus 8 Pro, it's a really nice creamy blur back there. But when you look at the iPhone's picture, it does have a nice blur to it, but it's not as deep as it is on the 8 Pro. But now switching over to the dedicated portrait mode on both of these phones, starting with the OnePlus 8 Pro, you can see that I like the way it looks, but I was expecting a little bit more of an intense blur to it, because it's not as intense as it is on the regular wide angle lens, but it does do a better job than what the iPhone 11 Pro did here in this particular situation, because you can see that the iPhone has an issue with object detections. And so this has happened to me in the past with other iPhones. Like, for example, this picture I took with the iPhone XS, and you can see that it just went into overdrive and cut out that rock, but that's not really what I was going for. I actually do like the way it looks a little bit, but that's not what I wanted. And that's the same thing here with this flower. And so this has been a weak point for the portrait mode on iPhones for a little while now, where they're just really prioritizing faces and not really focusing on objects, where other companies like OnePlus and Google are really putting attention to taking photos of animals and objects as well. And here's one more set of photos using both of the rear-facing cameras for portrait mode, and I am really happy with both of these photos. They look very similar, but when you do punch in, you do see on the iPhone 11 Pro, under my left ear there, the edge detection ran into a little issues, whereas on the OnePlus 8 Pro, I'm cut out pretty nicely there. And now for our last set of photos, let's take a look at the dedicated night modes on these phones. So these are the before pictures, and now here are the after pictures. So it does look like the OnePlus did a slightly better job at uncovering things that were in the darkness, but I really like the look of the iPhone's picture. And something else you should know is that with the OnePlus 8 Pro, you can also take these night mode, or they call it nightscape pictures, with the ultra wide camera as well. And that's enough with the rear facing cameras. Now let's switch over to portrait mode using the front facing cameras.
Okay, so I have both pictures pulled up here, and the first thing that I did notice is just how each one handles the highlights. So let me punch in and go a little bit more on the OnePlus.